On Tall Tales. I apologize for those who are listening into the radio, but we're trying to follow the stream on Facebook. We're up on now, so if you go to Facebook or to YouTube, you'll find the live stream there. Of course, you could always catch this program on the airwaves, 93.3 FM, as well as all of our apps that you can get from your app store, the Apple App Store or Google Play. We have Audacity. Point Guam, you'll find that app in the Apple Store and Google Play as well. So for those who are patient on getting or watching the stream, the systemic racism. Systemic racism, like I said, is about the truth versus the narrative. It was first discovered eating as actually orange. And he suggested that instead of calling it red rice, we from now on refer to it as orange rice. The end, or at least we thought it was. The next day, the PDN outraged that he would try to recolor the rice, calling him colonizer. The Whitey is also trying to rewrite a letter from the editor or to the editor from him again, or a column. Systemic racism. This one talks about in voting state to state, and he's been reading an article, a really great article, that have outlined all the things that have been discovered on having questions that you will not be able to watch anymore because YouTube decided to censor also. And I know this because it's in a question. And so this is why this is in the systemic racism part. Poll, result shifting presidential election. Some have even gone so far as to call it the most secure election in U.S. history, the narrative. According to its findings, voter fraud, especially fraud related to mail-in ballots, may have been common. In December 6th, asked likely voters who cast ballots in 2020 questions about fraudulent activities without telling. During the 2020 election, did you cast a mail-in ballot in a state where you were no longer a permanent resident? 17% of mail-in voters who responded to the survey answered yes. Even more remarkably, 21% of respondents in both potential forms of illegal voting. Taken together, these results strongly indicate fraud and illegal voting. Incredibly important finding since that contests involve more mail-in ballots than any other election in U.S. history. In 2020, more than 68 million were submitted by mail, and about 43% of the total in ballots cast was accompanied by a significant decrease in the overall absentee rejection rate for the country. If the recent Heartland Institute Rasmussen survey is accurate and 1 in 5 ballots were in fact fraudulent, about 7 million. As troubling as these findings are, however, additional questions in the Heartland Institute returned for voting. Equally disturbing, 10% of voters said a friend, family member, coworker, or other acquaintance. These questions could indicate far more fraud occurred than anyone previously thought. It's also worth remembering Biden narrowly won each of those contests, but if he had lost those 3 states, he would have Rasmussen voter fraud survey in mind. It's hard not to wonder how big of an effect fraud so that all Americans can be confident that the winner of the 2024 campaign will capture the White House fair and square. Institute in Rasmussen shows that 28% of likely voters now say they would commit at least one form of illegal voting during the 2024 election if given the opportunity. Interestingly, respondents' willingness to commit fraud was similar among Republicans, Democrats, and independents. It's across the board. There is some good news, however. The threat of voter fraud can be limited dramatically by changing mail-in ballot rules. Voters who are physically able to cast their ballots in person should be required to do so, or they should be mandated to have their ballot signature notarized, significantly reducing opportunities for fraud. Lawmakers could fund public programs to increase access to free notaries for those who need them. According to the National Conference of State Legislatures, just 3 states require notaries for mail-in ballots: Mississippi, Missouri, and Oklahoma. Only 9 additional states mandate that a voter obtain 1 or more non-notary witness signatures when casting the ballot by mail. Most states require neither a witness nor a notary to verify signatures. Lawmakers must ensure widespread voter fraud does not happen in future elections. That can only occur if mail-in voting systems are radically improved. Time is running out for legislators to fix these major threats to American self-government. Again, this is one based on a pursuit of the truth versus the narrative, where the narrative absurdly canceled anyone that would question the integrity of the 2020 votes. We all know that it was an irregular voting season. We were in the middle of a pandemic that had lockdowns everywhere, including here on Guam. I was a critic of a lot of the practices here on the island too, especially the extremely very early voting and the drive-by voting. I call it the drive-by voting, where people drove up, and there was multiple people in cars that were voting as well. And we all know that you cannot go to a voting precinct or district or your voting area and be right there next to a person voting. They'll get rid of those tablets, those ballots, and give the people new ones and separate. But that, you can't just have anybody in those cars, but they don't seem to pay attention to that. And whether or not voter fraud by secret ballot, then it ought to be across the board that way. I'm going to ask questions, and we should always ask questions. You're listening to Tall Tales here on KUSG, The Point. We're going to go to a real quick break. When we come back,
walk down the aisle into Choice Broadcasting and Lotte Hotel's Island Wedding Expo. So if you're a couple planning for that special day, come over. One lucky couple will have a chance to win a round-trip ticket to Japan, courtesy of United Airlines, a free engagement photo shoot, and so much more. Come browse through our amazing sponsor booths: United Airlines, The Glam Shop, R. Lewis Weddings, Payless Floral, Isla Jewelry, Weddings by Jane, Elle's Bridal, Finch Jewelers, Michaela Winters Photography, Weddings by Cha, The Occasion, Rustic Poppy Photography, Stelstar Productions, DJ Stewart, and Perfect View 360. Did I mention it's open to the public? Yes, free. Mark the date, May 19th. Doors open at 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. at the Lotte Hotel Crystal Ballroom. It's the Island Wedding Expo, a Choice Broadcasting event.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
All right. I just went to Facebook, and first off, I want to wish Rico Blankenfor a very happy birthday. He hasn't heard that enough today, and so I wish just to let him know that, because I don't want him to feel like he doesn't have any friends. Anyways, the reason why I'm also saying that is because he says here, can't get over the Red Queen's malfunction face. If anyone was watching Ray's show, or even have a WhatsApp or any other kind of social media, you saw Senator Chris Barnett's response to everything that's going on at the Simon Sanchez town hall meeting that occurred last night. Very pithy words. He was very straight and direct, placing all the responsibility on Governor Lulian Guerrero and Lieutenant Governor Tenorio as well. There was some Atan Baba looks from both the governor and the lieutenant governor. And some of those videos that you guys saw stopped at the end, or almost at the end of Senator Barnett's words. But I thought it was very interesting what happened afterwards. And there's another video going around of people who Senator Chris had a say, and he wasn't given those instructions, or if he wasn't gonna
they're talking about building some Sanchez, and they should have already had it finished.
Right.
But how does that jive with
populations have shifted big time, and I don't know. I didn't watch the whole video, so I don't know if that was discussed, because I was part of Maneka versus Israel, and there was an article that came out in a website unfolding on our campuses has enough foot soldiers for a program, but not enough for a revolution yet. In one somewhat creepy but rather hilarious incident, an anti-Zionist mob was filmed pushing Jews offward, one step forward, another step forward, as they walked zombie-like toward the intruders. Was trying to negotiate terms with Columbia University. What a maroon. Anyways, nevertheless, the university are contagious. Energized by their success at Columbia, anti-Israel organizers vowed to spread their Abudadze threatened 2 American journalists. A Jewish woman was assaulted at Yale, as was a man in a kippah. One thug went on a tirade about killing Whitey. How many campus agitators are students and faculty is unclear. For a setter, for a seater. Cops at Arizona State University said that the majority of the feuds are set up with the assistance of trained professionals and funded through well-heeled domestic NGOs like George Soros's Tides Foundation. Draw is comparatively modest. On April 23rd, 24 tents were observed on the steps of Sprout. Most of the copycat tent villages are lucky to attract more than a few dozen campers. Only a handful of universities, but with all the reinforcements, the movement couldn't fill the lawn on its own marquee campus. On April 25th, hundreds of spectators assembled in Union Square to watch a man eat a jar of cheese balls. That was just locally. People's Park was a squatter druggie colony for over half a century until the university finally worked up the will to evict them. Even BLM had the troops for that. This is not lost on socialists who have been very tight with the Palestinian movement to work in Marxism-Leninism, theoretically. But if the American working class can't be bothered to free itself from its chains, CIS noted that at Columbia, 36,649 individuals, or 55% of the student body, captured in Arabic anti-Zionist chants. Who said the Livies were useless and who said the Ivies are useless? The one woman who admitted she hasn't looked into the movement's demands. She just came in solidarity. But most urges its enemies with genocide is not a good draw. The campus intifada is more than a problem, is the big one. It's the ability of the perpetrators to control the daily life of a university, access and stage illegal occupations of university properties. One day they may have enough followers to fill up that lawn in Columbia, or enough voters to elect their desired government. We can't allow indoctrination of American teens either. Expulsion of a handful of particularly vicious undergrads is not enough. The entire system that propagandizes the impressionable and encourages intrusion on our rights has to go. Okay. The name of that author is Katja Sedgwick. And the reason why I like this article and I brought it forth is because although there's a lot of talk and frustration of these groups, I liked how she undermined them and didn't really give them much strength, but still warned about the dangers of letting this grow. And not just so much because of the ignorant undergrads, but because of the influence they could have in changing our government, putting people in power that can make rules and laws that are just incompatible with the United States and its Constitution. And before anyone thinks that that's just a conspiracy theory, it is not unattainable. It happens in many other countries, and the United States is not immune to that. And we've seen it happen just south of our border. And if anybody has any kind of opinion opposite of that, you might want to ask yourself, why are so many fleeing those countries then to come up here to the United States on our southern border. Tall Tales will return in the next hour with the big halftime show and Tall Tales Tailgaters Rogues Gallery. More to be had here. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Time's up at UCLA. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. The university gave anti-Israel protesters until midnight to clear their encampments, but protesters say they're not going anywhere and are braced for police to breach their barricades. For now, police are standing by.
Hundreds upon hundreds of these pro-Palestine protesters have shown up here outside of the encampment, apparently in an effort to defend it. There are large numbers of LAPD officers in riot gear on the outskirts of campus here with their crowd control gear, their helmets, and they are starting to encircle this campus. And then the protesters, the encampment, they built a wall to keep police and counter-protesters out.
Fox's Bill Maluzhan. Then in New York City, the drama unfolded a day ago at Columbia, NYU, and City College of New York, and has spread to Fordham University. Additional clashes yesterday at the University of Arizona, Tulane University in New Orleans, and the University of Wisconsin and elsewhere. A drive-by shooting in Fort Worth, Texas, injures 6 people, all under the age of 19, the youngest just 3 years old. Police Chief Neil Noakes calls it senseless violence.
Pisses me off. I've said many times it makes me angry. I am mad. I'm pissed off.
The shooting happened last night outside an apartment complex. 5 of the victims were transported to a hospital, 1 in critical condition, and the shooter or shooters got away. A massive fire tore through a New York City supermarket last night, injuring 7 people, 6 of them firefighters. More than 250 firefighters responded to the fire in Brooklyn, which quickly spread to 4 neighboring apartment buildings, displacing about 30 residents. And the Arizona lawmakers voted yesterday to repeal the state's Civil War-era ban on abortions. The governor says she will sign the measure. America's listening to Fox News.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Their services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Choice Broadcasting and Lotte Hotel Guam present the 2024 Island Wedding Expo. Commit to showing up on May 19th. Join us in the Crystal Ballroom from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. A lucky couple will have a chance to win a round trip to Japan, courtesy of United Airlines. They must be present to win, so stick around and enjoy some of our fine sponsors: Vince Jewelers, Arliss Wedding, The Glam Shop, Payless Floral, Wedding by Cha, Elle's Bridal, Island Color and Copy, Isla Jewelry, Lotte Hotel, and so much more. May 19th. Save the date.
The U.S. Air Force is preparing additional charges against convicted Pentagon leaker Jack Teixeira.
Jack Teixeira, the Massachusetts Air National Guardsman convicted of leaking classified military documents, including about the Russia-Ukraine war, also faces charges for alleged violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. According to the U.S. Air Force, the charges include failure to obey a lawful order by allegedly continuing to look at information unrelated to his duties, despite an order requiring him to stop, and obstructing justice by allegedly disposing of evidence in the case against him. Teixeira is already serving a 16-year prison sentence after pleading guilty in federal court to 6 counts of retaining and transmitting classified national defense information. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
Another Boeing whistleblower dies suddenly and unexpectedly.
Joshua Dean, who worked for Boeing supplier Spirit Aerosystems in Wichita, Kansas, is dead after a short illness. The former quality auditor alleged that leadership at Spirit Aerosystems had ignored manufacturing defects on Boeing's 737 MAX. He was fired last April and filed a retaliation complaint with the Labor Department. A relative says Dean had been healthy and was known for a healthy lifestyle. But he died Tuesday after 2 weeks of being in critical condition with a bacterial infection. Another Boeing whistleblower, John Barnett, was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in March. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
The Federal Reserve leaves interest rates at a 23-year high of roughly 5.3%.
Inflation is still too high. Further progress in bringing it down is not assured, and the path forward is uncertain.
Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says the central bank needs more data showing price increases are slowing towards the bank's 2% target. Dow futures climbing this morning, up 114 points. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Located in the heart of Hagåtña, Mezcla Fusion Bistro isn't just a meal, it's an experience. Fresh, local ingredients are fused with international influence. Here at Mezcla Fusion Bistro, Chamorro staples meet modern fusion. Make your reservation today and taste the magic. Visit us online at mezclaguam.com or call 479-2652 or 489-2653. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
Off a day, Mark Beneventi from Security Title here with a little information about deeds. In the world of real estate, a deed is the most common way to transfer property and ownership. Whether you're transferring a house in Chico, a hotel in Tumon, or a ranch in Talipopo, the deed will describe the property boundaries, any restrictions, and the exact name of the new owner. Whether you're selling, buying, or even inheriting property, the deed transferring title is essential. When it comes to real estate, knowledge is key. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Walk down the aisle into Choice Broadcasting and Lotte Hotel's Island Wedding Expo. So if you're a couple planning for that special day, come over. One lucky couple will have a chance to win a round-trip ticket to Japan, courtesy of United Airlines, a free engagement photo shoot, and so much more. Come browse through our amazing sponsor booths: United Airlines, The Glam Shop, R. Lewis Weddings, Payless Floral, Isla Jewelry, Weddings by Jane, Elle's Bridal, Finch Jewelers, Michaela Winters Photography, Weddings by Cha, The Occasion, Rustic Poppy Photography, Stelstar Productions, DJ Stewart, and Perfect View 360. Did I mention it's open to the public? Yes, free. Mark the date, May 19th. Doors open at 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. at the Lotte Hotel Crystal Ballroom. It's the Island Wedding Expo, a Choice Broadcasting event.
I love that part in marches. What is that called? It's like I know there's always parts. Did you hear what I said? There's always parts in music, that they call the different sections, and they go back to the theme. But that part of the march where it just goes from the big pompous thing, and then all of a sudden it's like dun, 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 almost like I don't know how you would explain it. Anyways, I love that part of it. It kind of is like a
or of the previous section.
Right.
I think it's a bridge.
A bridge. There you go. Could be. Yeah. Sometimes is what you just witnessed there during the big halftime show. And if you're asking yourself, how can I be a part of that? Sure. If you go to that, click on that picture, it'll send you to a link where you can order that shirt. When that shirt arrives, Rogues Gallerinians. Is that how you say it? The Rogues Gallery. It's that simple. And 3634 is the amendment to the open government law or transparency law that states that agenda, or interested in the agency or the NGO that's having these meetings can know what's on the agenda and because the Guam PDN no longer fits that definition, agendas cannot be published. There's a charter school who has a small agenda for their meeting on Wednesday, May 8th. However, opened up here on Guam, and there could be an issue if you don't publish this agenda in a news on the Guam Pacific Daily News. It's just to follow the law to make these people. This is the protect. We have the Guam Board of Registration for Peel. You know what Peel stands for? Business, and that's it. And we all know what that means. That means we don't have no idea what you're going to talk about in news. Once again, not a newspaper of journal circulation. All right. Next on the card. So we have, this came out in Wednesday's Guam Pacific Daily News. It's May 28th. The Consolidated Commission on Utilities voted to table the matter of pay adjustments for GPA and GWA to take effect until the last quarter of the fiscal year or July at the earliest, so CCU still has time to consider the matter. A concerned employees. The utilities, however, want to adjust pay across the board for their employees and have already completed a pay law which states that non-technical and professional jobs at the utilities will have to stay in line with other government pay scales laid out by states, and power plant technicians are identified for GPA, for example, while water and sewer plant supervisors are identified for country who hold the same job as them. The pay increase seeks to stave off the loss of personnel, which is driven most so while GWA will pay an estimated $8 million a year once the full raises take effect. According to Carlson, up pay with little to any bearing on employee performance nor compensation levels in the Guam market. The additional savings does not provide carte blanche to do so, he stated. Duenas on Monday night said he had referred the letter to the utilities, fallen recently below the 5th market percentile, meaning 95% of the people who have the same job as them in the U.S. make his civilian status as a ratepayer versus being a policy analyst at the Guam who wrote out and pointed out the public laws, and this should be something worth looking at for the CCU, and they thought themselves public law. Do you know this person? You're a policy person, Daryl.
Not only do I know him, we used to play from behind the senator that he works for. Yeah, and make a public statement.
But that is interesting, giving his opinion as a ratepayer instead of as his position. To a senator isn't
of BBMR.
Oh, interesting.
Lester Carlson.
Oh yeah. Okay, I know. I recognize that last name. Very cool. So this is, and I'm hoping Harvey Agna appreciates this one because it is full of history meanings in their role in the history of the U.S. and law, especially what goes on with us. This first appeared in the 2024 issue of the Coolidge Review, and so by the time Calvin Coolidge took the national stage, the progressive era had run its course. That gave him the opportunity. Administration was beset with race riots, runaway inflation, violent strikes, and the suppression of civil liberties households from what progressive theory had predicted. When the income tax appeared in 1913, it began with a relatively low top rate of 7%, which applied only to the wealthiest people in America, those with incomes of more than $15 million, adjusted to today's dollars. But by 1920, when Coolidge ran for president, the lowest rate stood at 4% and applied to all incomes under about $60,000, adjusted to today's dollars. The top rate had risen to 73%, and there were 56 tax brackets. Prohibition just as jarringly diverged from the ideal. In reality, enforcement was far beyond the government's capabilities. Progressivism had imagined that prohibition would solve a wider variety of moral ills. It would reduce crime and corruption. But instead of solving existing social problems, it created new ones. Even so, as lieutenant governor and as governor, Calvin Coolidge remained open to progressive ideals. He supported many progressive causes, such as the rights of working people and the dignity of work. He also supported policies that today we think of as progressive, but that Wilson did not support, such as voting rights for women. Beginning in 1907 in the Massachusetts legislature, Coolidge voted in favor of women's suffrage. In fact, Coolidge became president of the Massachusetts Senate when the incumbent president lost his reelection at state level until 1915, by which time Susan B. Anthony was nearly 10 years in the grave. Women's rights in their definition of progressivism, nor did they include civil rights for Black Americans. Most biology, sociology, genetics, and eugenics. In fact, many of the most prominent corporations and railroads, but he also led the charge for segregation and for restricting the vote to white males. New York Times editorial, "White supremacy promotes the highest welfare of both races." Bryan spoke at Devout Klansmen. When Bryan died in 1925, the Klan conducted memorial services and cross burnings had worked side by side for years. The progressive journalist and publisher Joseph Daniels was another secretary of the Navy. Late in the Wilson administration, race riots across the United States were in almost every case threatened a railroad strike because railroads had hired women conductors at equal pay. The Wilson administration recommended when he and Harding were elected, it was with the greatest popular landslide in a century. Still, Coolidge private property, the owners of private property had an obligation to use it in service of society. He called this his was written by Christopher Cox, who chaired the Securities and Exchange Commission, and he was elected leadership of the House, the think tank. But it's interesting, and it's prompted me to delve more into this part of American history. I used history, Civil War, of course, and then this right here, the aftermath of the Civil War and the progressive 7th-inning stretch. More after this. Don't go away.
Get ready to make waves at the event of the year. The Micronesian Conservation Coalition proudly presents the 3rd annual Ocean Gala, taking place Saturday, May 11th from 6 to 10 at the stunning Hyatt Regency Guam. Join us to celebrate our beautiful ocean and the tireless efforts of our community to preserve it. Dance the night away with live music, indulge in exquisite cuisine, and be inspired by our Starry Night celebration, honoring our ocean champions. Tickets are selling fast at $150 a head, or grab a table for 10 for just $1,400. WhatsApp or call 671-797-8445 with your interest. That's 671-797-8445. Special thanks to our generous sponsors, including Environmental Chemical Corporation, Bank of Guam, Future Smiles Orthodontics, Unitech Environmental Guam, Phoenix Jet, and Landscape Management Systems. Don't miss out. In the words of Vincent van Gogh, great things are done by a series of small things brought together.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mescla Bistro. Located in Agana, you can call 671-479-2652 or 671-489-2653 for reservations. Seventh inning stretch, 2 more innings left in this Thursday episode of Tall Tales. In true to form, thank you. Harvey Agnes chimed in, remembering Calvin Coolidge. His nickname is Silent Cal. And says here, Wilson implemented many progressive regulations, such as the Working Men's Compensation and the FTC, I guess that's the Federal Trade Commission, as well as the Clayton Antitrust and Adamson Acts. Very cool. Next on the card, what did I put here? From a website called that. But let me get to the website here. It's interesting. It's not a hit-you-in-the-head type website, though it is a Catholic 501c nonprofit organization, and its mission is to advance a religiously informed public philosophy for the ordering of society. And, I might explain a lot of things that are going on, even though people sometimes want to thumb their nose whenever religion is entered into the conversation. This is a very interesting article written by an Auguste Mayrat called Our Pagan Society. I recently assigned my high school sophomores Ursula K. Le Guin's a day of celebration. The people of Omalis are peaceful, prosperous, happy, and free. It seems a heaven on earth, but there's a catch. Somewhere in the city, if this child were to be freed, if someone were to so much as speak a kind word to it, Omalis would become and learn about it in school. And while whether they themselves would leave Omalis, most say yes. Of course, a few contrarians claim they would stay. Abortion. Like my students, most Americans would pass the Omelis test when it's posed as fiction, but a majority fail it in a real world, supporting the elective killing of unborn children. It become politically toxic since the Dobbs ruling nearly 2 years ago. Although pro-abortion arguments haven't changed, 3 shifts in American life help explain the renewed infatuation. Disembodied cyberspace. Too much time spent in disembodied cyberspace has detached potential parents, among millennials and especially Zoomers, from physical reality and think of it as an abstraction, a right, rather than as the live dismemberment or starvation in the case of medical or chemical abortion of a human baby. At the same time, pro-life campaigners have become reluctant to display the full horror of explain in clinical detail what happens to an aborted child. Most media outlets, even ostensibly conservative ones, prefer to censor such accounts. A film like Juno from 2007, in which a pregnant since COVID. Most Americans, particularly women of childbearing age, do not go to church and lack the moral framework. Most people have adopted why they will oppose late-term abortions but demand legal abortions in the first half of pregnancy. Even if there is a practical difference, she will have sufficient help from the father. Moreover, if she decides she doesn't want to have the baby, these first few weeks are the same. Thirdly, most Americans are buying into the Omalis argument. Pro-abortion voices in mainstream warn that if abortion is limited on abortion, They think of poor women in the slums having dozens of illegitimate, neglected children. They think of older women in rich suburbs socially hamstrung by their unwanted wifery. The specter of red habits and white bonnets looms. Progressives in the federal government are so committed to this belief that they abuse their power to persecute pro-life activists, while pro-abortion fanatics are already terrorizing pregnancy centers. But the idea that abortion contributes to American prosperity is belied by blue state chaos and discontent, and even more so by the success of red states that restrict abortion. Texas is the signal case. Even after effectively banning abortion, it continues to grow and flourish. No one walks away from Dallas or Houston or Austin as they do from O'Malley's. Quite the contrary. Moreover, Texas's laws against abortion have already saved nearly 10,000 babies. Although presumably unwanted, their existence has not destabilized society. With the exception of eugenicists like Kate Cox, who uses the trisomy diagnosis of her unborn child to challenge the state's abortion laws, parents are making peace with their unexpected responsibilities. Pro-lifers should trumpet the success of the Lone Star State. Call it the new Texas miracle. Not only does my state's economy survive downturns better than other states, but it also benefits from choosing the reality of new life over the illusion of bodily autonomy. Nor should the case end there. Because permissive attitudes about abortion are fostered by immersion in social media, prohibiting social media use for minors, like Florida is currently doing, would help to ground the young in physical reality and cultivate empathy. Texas and other pro-life states should follow Florida's lead to fortify their position. O'Malley's sacrifice of a single child makes it an ineluctably pagan society. How much more pagan is a society that sacrifices millions of children? If abortion ever contributed to American prosperity or social solidarity, it was only through its role as a pagan scapegoating ritual. And ultimately, if America is ever to defeat this grave evil, it will be through a revival of Christianity, which declares excellent. Politicians may cater to the moral weaknesses of their constituents, but those committed to defending life should recognize the retort. Just is a high school English teacher, freelance writer, and of course lives in Texas because they talked about Texas as theirs.
Located in the heart of Hagåtña, Mezcla Fusion Bistro isn't just a meal, it's an experience. Fresh, local ingredients are fused with international influence. Here at Mezcla Fusion Bistro, Chamorro staples meet modern fusion. Make your reservation today and taste the magic. Visit us online at mezclaguam.com or call 479-2652 or 489-2653. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam. The home stretch, Churchill Downs. We are almost at the conclusion of today's episode of Tall Tales. And right now we have the very last thing on the card. We're finally getting to Jankovic versus Free Information. This one is written by Jonathan Turley, who is a
a very good writer, columnist. He appears on lots of television. I see him a lot on Fox News as the other side. He's not a conservative Republican for sure, and I'm not saying that to. Well, I'm just I don't know why I'm saying that, but this starts out. Disinformation czar Jankovich returns as head of new project before election. Nina Jankovich is back with a vengeance. The former head of the infamous Disinformation Governance Board with the Department of Homeland Security is now heading a private disinformation group called the American Sunlight Project. With a close election looming in November, Jankovich has found funding to expose and oppose efforts to weaponize disinformation in the United States. The establishment of the group is only the latest example of how many in politics and media are doubling down on efforts to paint opposing views as dangerous for democracy as the nation readies for a historic election. Jankovich promises that once researchers are free to conduct their essential work, the American people will gain a better understanding of the nature and severity of the disinformation threats. Victim is our democracy. It's not clear who has funded the new project in an election campaign conspired with Russian agents and WikiLeaks to strategically disseminate the information was given this designation by groups pushing blacklists and censorships. For example, according to an investigation by which discourages ads were the riskiest, are popular with conservatives, libertarians, and independents. GDI warned advertisers that they were lying. Sounds conservative groups as harmful and terroristic and has a really awful left-leaning list. Wants to speak on Woodrow Wilson. Good afternoon, Frenchie. We have about 10 minutes.
Have a public viewing inside the White House of the movie Birth of a Nation.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The Secretary of the Navy was a prominent North Carolina newspaper owner who was very big on for scientific racialism, which is true. A lot of universities, especially on the East Coast, people are the ones that gave us the Jim Crow laws that lasted until the late 60s.
Scientific
of it, that was mostly the German studies and things. They were a little ahead of their time, and they were using modernism to justify segregation.
Right. United States practices, they actually studied some of our laws.
Actually, it is true. Actually, one of the biggest advocates of that is that has a podcast on political donation, which is a joke when you know the Democratic Party.
Right.
So, but of the U.S. to evangelical and as a Freemason. So this is the type of people that Wilson had in his administration and nations that Wilson didn't like. So this is really the onset of in the permanent administration of the federal government. Another thing is that his daughter-in-law, actually Foster was himself a foreign Secretary of State during the Roosevelt, Alan Foster Dulles and John Foster Dulles. Now, for the younger crowd that don't remember who those two people were, they were World War I to Belgium, Holland, France, and other countries, Italy as well. And they were then they became something like this. Yeah. So those very powerful people in the shadow. Actually, the Republican you're talking about was the first one to put the women's vote, even though
aggressive philosophies that are still in government today have a very deep-seated in that lens.
Josephus Daniel was also for the gay listeners of the show. Josephus, he had several chaplains and things like that were kicked out of the Navy and many sailors. And
too far away from not being presidentism, as well as opposed to like Thomas Jefferson and canceling. Yeah. Oh, well, we're at the tail end of our program. We have to say goodbye to the president, but just real quick, French.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
On Edge at UCLA, I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. The deadline's passed for anti-Israel protesters to leave the UCLA campus, but they've been digging in and bracing for a police raid.
There are hundreds of those pro-Palestinian protesters in that camp. They were given multiple dispersal orders. They were told that is an unlawful gathering. That camp put out a plea on X, essentially saying, if you support our cause, get down here and stop law enforcement from getting to us. There are multiple law enforcement agencies on scene.
Fox's Bill Malhusian. And this as anti-Israel protests linger at 4 college campuses in New York City and other colleges across the U.S. And Hamas indicates it will not accept Israel's ceasefire hostage swap proposal. Speaking in Israel, Secretary of State Antony Blinken says if the militant group cares about the people in Gaza, it should accept the plan.
There is no time for delay. There's no time for further haggling. The deal is there. They should take it.
Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs says she is eager to sign the measure passed by the Senate yesterday that repeals the state's 1864 abortion ban. Former President Trump taking credit for giving states the power over abortion.
We brought it back into the states where it has to be, and over a period of time that works out.
The former president speaking yesterday in Wisconsin as he campaigned during his hush money trial's weekly break. That trial gets back to business today.
First order of business when the trial resumes is another gag order hearing. This after prosecutors filed a motion that the former president violated the judge's gag order 4 more times. On Tuesday, the judge held him in contempt and ordered him to pay $9,000 for gag order violations.
Fox's Gary Baumgarten. America's listening to Fox News.
Stay on top of the latest forecast with America's Weather Team in the palm of your hands.
Here's the latest from America's Weather Center.
It's Fox weather updates throughout your busy day, every day.
That heat's going to be out there for one more day.
Temperatures being 30 degrees above average.
Put the power of over 100 meteorologists and the worldwide resources of Fox in your hands with the Fox Weather Podcast. Precise, personal, powerful. Subscribe and listen now at foxnewspodcasts.com. Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
President Biden returns to the campaign trail today with a visit to North Carolina.
President Biden is headed to Wilmington, where the new Hanover County Democratic Party chair says he's going to talk about infrastructure and the environment. Wilmington is where former President Trump was going to rally last month, but canceled due to weather. Now, President Biden's adding Charlotte to his itinerary as well to visit with the loved ones of the 4 fugitive task force members killed this week while trying to serve a warrant on a violent felon. North Carolina is considered a critical swing state, while former President Trump leads President Biden in polling by a little over 5 points in the state. He only beat President Biden by a little over 1 point in 2020. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Trouble on the task force formed to bring stability to Haiti.
A midnight plot by the political mafia. That's how some are describing the latest twist in Haiti's saga. 4 of the 7 members of the country's transitional council shocked Haitians by unexpectedly choosing a new prime minister, former sports minister Fritz Belizaire. It was February 29th when gangs launched coordinated attacks, with then Prime Minister Ariel Henry out of the country. The violence continues to this day. Council members opposing the choice of leader are considering whether to resign, which could be a setback on the path to stability. Jonathan Savage, Fox News.
The Boston Celtics advanced to the Eastern Conference semifinals, beating the Miami Heat 118-84 last night in Game 5. Boston will face the winner of the Cleveland-Orlando series. Pioneering guitar hero Dwayne Eddy dies. His reverberating electric sound helped put the twang in early rock and roll and influenced George Harrison, Bruce Springsteen, and countless others. Eddie died Sunday at his home in Franklin, Tennessee. He was 86. And Dow futures up 143 points. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Get ready to make waves at the event of the year. The Micronesian Conservation Coalition proudly presents the 3rd annual Ocean Gala, taking place Saturday, May 11th from 6 to 10 at the stunning Hyatt Regency Guam. Join us to celebrate our beautiful ocean and the tireless efforts of our community to preserve it. Dance the night away with live music, indulge in exquisite cuisine, and be inspired by our Starry Night celebration, honoring our ocean champions. Tickets are selling fast at $150 a head, or grab a table for 10 for just $1,400. WhatsApp or call 671-797-8445 with your interest. That's 671-797-8445. Special thanks to our generous sponsors, including Environmental Chemical Corporation, Bank of Guam, Future Smiles Orthodontics, Unitech Environmental Guam, Phoenix Jet, and Landscape Management Systems. Don't miss out. In the words of Vincent van Gogh, great things are done by a series of small things brought together.
The horse race numbers and the gotcha moments and the distractions, the sideshows.
We should not have to tolerate anti-Semitism or bigotry for all Jewish students, whether they are pro-genocide or anti-genocide.
I've been thinking that we really all need a tremendous hug in the world right now. But in our country, we need you to be Mamala of the country.
The countdown is on. Only 187 days left till Election Day.
Yeah, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song.
From coast to coast. From border to border. From sea to shining sea. Sean Hannity is on. Our final news roundup and information overload hour.
All right, news roundup and information overload hour, 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. When we come back in a second here, after I play some SOTs for you, I'm going to introduce you to two professors. They have a front row seat on what's happening at college campuses around the country. One of them is William Jacobson. He's a Cornell professor. I want you to listen to his comments first. Now, it was very interesting, even over at MSDNC, they have a host, Alex Wagner. I'm not really sure who it is, but they're even pointing out the obvious, that the backlash to these protests, in this one particular case, she's talking about Colombia, could result in another Reagan, a fierce conservative agenda. No, it actually could probably result in another Trump, the same one. Anyway, let's play that.
Yeah, the late 70s were a period of retrenchment, and then 1980 saw Ronald Reagan and a conservative agenda that was fiercer, more focused, and more effective than maybe any other conservative agenda in ways that we're still grappling with to this day. I mean, the establishment of the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, any number of right-wing organizations, a master plan to retake the judiciary. I mean, what we saw in the after effect of the Vietnam War was really a brand of conservatism, a new right that the country had never seen before, and it remains to be seen.
And you have a CNN reporter and Columbia student questioning their own, celebratory graduation ceremony at Columbia after the police raid. Listen to this.
graduation is May 15th. That is my graduation as well, John. You know, I have family coming from Brazil to come watch me, you know, walk across the stage and get my diploma. But and I hope, of course, as everyone does, that this can happen. But at the same time, is there a climate for celebration, for graduation to move on? I mean, I think that, you know, I spoke to a lot of students on campus today, and people were just feeling caught in between.